when I take a good look at Adamsburg, as someone suggested to me, it could very well be one day an historic district, which is really not my decision. It has to do with the people who live there and the Pennsylvania Historic and Museum Commission, the PHMC. They have their criteria for what comprises a historic district, but Adamsburg just might fit their criteria. You have a lot of buildings here that really look like you have an intact little village here from the days when the Pittsburgh and Philadelphia Turnpike was running through here. One of the things that impresses me about these buildings, how many of them are oriented to the dimension of the turnpike coming through. See how they're very long. They run east-west, and you don't too often see the gable end of structures that are facing out toward the highway. Mostly the gable ends are toward the way the highway is running. Once upon a time, the old turnpike. Now we're going up the hill pretty much out of what was the historic area. We are here looking at Hempfield Township. The green line delineates Hempfield. And we see Adamsburg out here on the edge. And we can come in and get a little bit closer. I do this because I just want to point out that Adamsburg was a kind of hub, a central place for people in the area. The turnpike from Philadelphia to Pittsburgh came through Greensburg, Grapeville, and came through Adamsburg out here and on in to Pittsburgh. But it was a place that the farmers around there relied on for goods and services. That's why you see it as the central position, like the center of a wheel with spokes coming in. You know, you see all these roads coming in, saying that it was a central point. People came there because there were craftsmen there. There were people there who did things. There was a doctor in town, a justice of the peace. Another issue was the railroad going by. This was the 1860s. By this time, the railroad had been already built more than 10 years. And we can focus in on it a little bit to give ourselves a picture. This is an old map. This is from the 1850s, before the Civil War even, 1857. And you can see all these roads coming in, giving it a status as a hub. This is the pike, Philadelphia to Pittsburgh pike coming right through the center of the place. And this litany of people here would list mostly the people who were more prominent. I mean, the people who were doing something. You could find the town doctor, who was Bigelow, and the blacksmiths, the carpenter and joiner, the tinsmith, the people who ran stores that kept the economic life of the place going. And this was another big issue. Part of the transportation industry. I mean, there would be stages going through there every day, leaving off people who might want to stay there, which means there was a hotel there, leaving off salesmen, people from the big city with new ideas, newspapers also. It was it was a means of commerce of not just goods and services to be sold, but ideas coming in. This 1867 map points out one thing we might notice. It was a very big factor. The railroad. The railroad was a big issue when it came, and we'll see why. It didn't open until 1852, and it did have an impact upon Adamsburg. Adamsburg was, by that time, a borough. Actually, it became incorporated as a borough as early as 1841. And we'll see, past that point, it started to show up, population of it started to show up, because prior to 1841, it was simply part of Hempfield Township and really wouldn't register as having an independent census. So by the 1850 census, right here, we are registering about 250 people in Adamsburg. That was 1850. And what you notice after that point is you're noticing a decline, a little bump here, but still going down. What happened in 1852 was the railroad came through. The railroad was about 1.25 miles, 1.5 miles north of there. But that, in a way, became one of the major thoroughfares. The turnpike going through was no longer the major thoroughfare. There was the railroad just north of that. And that competed. People started to move up that way. Being in the area of the railroad was often more of a economically viable proposition. Things changed. And you can see here by 1910, there's another big change. The population goes up to about 300. And what I attribute this to was the fact that by 1910, what was becoming a big factor was the automobile. And at that point, Adamsburg was favorably positioned. The new roads went right through Adamsburg. Eventually, Route 30 got realigned and put beside Adamsburg, which actually preserved it. It preserved its charm and historical character. And that's why it is the place it is today.